Hi guys, today is a good day. Today Sony releases not one, but two versions of the A7C. First up, we have the A7C II, which is an update to the original A7C, and in many ways is just a smaller, cheaper version of an A7 IV with an updated autofocus system. And then we have the A7CR, which is a 61 megapixel sensor camera that in many ways is a smaller, cheaper version of the A7R5. Now the A7 IV and the A7R5 are wildly popular cameras for Sony, so releasing these cameras, I think, is a really good idea, but we're here to talk about the differences between these two cameras and see which one, if either, might be right for you. So let's get into it. Now, I will be releasing videos that compare both of these cameras to other cameras, especially in the Sony lineup, like the A7 IV and the A7R5 and the original A7C and the A6700. So don't forget to subscribe, and then you'll be sure to be notified about all of those videos, if you hit the notification bell, that is. And also, of course, down below, besides the affiliate links that will make me stinking rich for these cameras, I will list what I think are the top 5 lenses for each of these cameras in the description to help you get going with your A7C journey. I will get to the differences between these two cameras in a minute, but first we need to talk about the similarities between these two cameras, because there are a lot. First and foremost is the body. They have the same body, so the same layout, the same buttons, the same size and weight and grip, and I personally really love this body. It is small and compact. I think it's one of the main selling points of these two cameras. Instead of the A7 IV and the A7R5, you can get many of the features in a smaller, more travel-friendly, lightweight, compact system. Both cameras can shoot 4K up to 60 with different levels of crop. The A7CR, it actually can't do 8K like the A7R5, and from what I can gather, that is a heating issue, so they don't want to give you the option of doing the 8K because I guess it just doesn't work in this smaller body, but you can still get up to 4K 60, and as well you can get that on the A7C II, but they do it in different ways. I will discuss that when we talk about the differences. So speaking of the footage, let me show you some side-by-side footage of the A7C II and the A7CR. I will show you the auto settings first, just if you take it out of the box and you press record, what the cameras will give you, and then I will show you the 4K modes with the S-Log3 and the Leeming LUT that I like to use, and I will also do an HD test and a 120 frames per second in HD. I'll throw that in as well, so take a look. They both feature a fantastic 15 plus stops of dynamic range, and they both have that fancy AI chip, which creates this ridiculously amazing autofocus. I didn't think Sony autofocus could get much better, but it has. This AI chip is able to just detect people and objects and insects and planes and trains and automobiles, and you can select different sections of things like insects and animals. It's bonkers. And as the animal or human turns around, it can predict where the eye is going to be as they spin around. It is amazing. The ability to track and the ability to nail focus is just, it's so great. It is difficult to miss your shot. And trust me, I have tried. They both feature the AI auto framing, which is great because you can put your camera over there on a tripod and it makes it look like a cameraman is following you around, like you have money to afford a cameraman. And it also does this thing where it can zoom in and out at 15 or 30-second increments, which is great. And you can also, if you're recording externally to an HDMI monitor like a Ninja 5, then you can record the full frame on the Ninja 5 and you can record the different types of crops of where it's following you around on the SD card itself. So you have many options to choose when it comes to your edit. Both cameras feature 7 stops of IBIS, and especially in photos, I think it makes a huge difference. It is really great. You can get much slower shutter speeds and still get sharp photos with this 7 stops of IBIS. When it comes to video, I still think that the IBIS system is not good enough to use on its own, so you definitely want to use the active stabilization mode. It crops in 10% and uses electronic stabilization, and then the footage comes out very, very smooth. So let's take a look at that stabilization right now. So this is the A7C2, and I am only using the IBIS right now. I am not using the active stabilization, just to see how this goes while we're walking with the IBIS. Just doing a little walk and talk and see if IBIS alone will do a good job with this A7C2. Now we've turned on the active stabilization on the A7C2, and the active stabilization with that 7 stops of IBIS, it should do a pretty good job. I like the active stabilization on most of the newer Sony cameras, and this one should be a step up from my A7 IV. So what do you guys think? And of course, like all of the new Sony cameras, they record gyroscopic data. So you can take the file, run it through the free program Catalyst Browse, the paid program Catalyst Prepare, or the other free program GyroFlow, and then you can get gimbal-like footage without a gimbal. With these cameras, especially where the active stabilization is so good, I would just use the gyroscopic data to smooth it out that little bit extra when I want it very, very smooth. Both have assignable user LUTs, which is great. You don't have to look at your gray S-Log3 footage. You can just put your LUT on there. I like to use Leeming LUTs or Phantom LUTs, and then I can see what my image will look like right there on the LCD. They have the new Sony time-lapse function, which is different than the regular interval shoot function and the S and Q mode. It's an extra function where you can just make your time lapse in camera. It will take the pictures for you, and then it will put them together in a 4K movie file, and then you have it ready for your computer, ready to go. Save yourself some time. Of course, they both have focus breathing compensation, focus mapping, which I personally love. I use focus mapping all the time now instead of peaking to make sure that what I want in focus is in focus. They have all of the picture profiles, S-Logs, the HLGs, the S-Cinetone as well. Same headphone jack, mic jack, and micro HDMI, and luckily the micro HDMI is right at the bottom of the camera, so it doesn't obstruct your view of the LCD when you have it plugged in. So even though I prefer a full-size HDMI, I'm glad at least it's at the bottom of the camera so that it is not in the way. And they both feature one SD card slot. They both have fast charging USB-C ports, and speaking of the USB-C port, you can actually live stream over that 4K 30, and it looks fantastic. You have to use it with picture profile off. You can't use any other profile like S-Log, stuff like that, but you just use the standard picture profile and you can stream straight from the USB-C cable, and it also will do a trickle charge, so you can last for hours and hours. I did a live stream with the A7C2 for 5 hours. I still had 80% battery, and I was just using one cord straight from the camera right into my computer. Fantastic. And obviously I had no overheating in that 5-hour stream. In fact, I couldn't get either of these cameras to overheat in any mode under any circumstance. So now I didn't take them out into the desert and leave them in the blazing sun, because that is not what you should do with cameras anyway. You should always put your cameras in shade. I have a video coming up about that soon, but the thing is, even if you're in direct sunlight, these cameras are going to last quite a while. In my studio here, they did 4K 60, both of them, with just no problems at all. Connected to HDMI monitors, it didn't matter. I couldn't get any of these cameras to even give me an overheat warning which was really great. They both feature 2.36 million dot EVFs, and while that doesn't sound like a lot, and it isn't, the brightness is quite good on the EVF. It's almost equivalent to the A7R5 brightness, so the EVF is quite usable. I do wish it was a higher resolution and a little bit bigger, but I can't complain much. I had no problems at all when I was out shooting with these cameras. They were a joy to shoot with, both of them. Now, their LCDs were also the 1.03 million dot LCDs. Once again, quite usable in the sunshine. You put them in sunny weather mode and they look fine, even compared to the A7R5. Even though it has a much higher resolution screen, I couldn't tell that much of a difference. So if it's usable, it's usable. Of course, I always want better and better resolutions on the LCD screens and the EVFs, but I have to say I had no trouble with these cameras in the bright sunshine. The A7C2 and the A7CR have a front dial as well as a rear dial, and of course the scroll wheel on the back, so I prefer that. When it comes to my hybrid shooting, I like having a front dial, and I am glad that it is now included on the A7C series. Both cameras feature that updated clear image zoom, so not only can you zoom in 1.5 times without any perceptible quality loss, at least to my old eyes, but also you keep the ability to track and you keep your eye autofocus. So that clear image zoom really will now come in handy. It will give you extra focal length out of every single lens you use when you are using video. And both of these cameras also feature an anti-flicker function. This is very cool. You can just press a button and it will scan a flickering light and it will find that frequency and then take that out of your footage. I think that is mighty useful. So now let's talk about the differences between these two magnificent cameras. Well, the A7C2 has a 33 megapixel sensor and the A7CR has a 61 megapixel sensor, and that really makes a huge difference when you are taking photos. When I was using the A7CR, I felt like I had two photo cameras in one, because I'm taking 61 megapixels with the full frame, but then if I switched to the APS-C crop mode, I would still get 26 megapixels. So I could use APS-C lenses if I wanted. In fact, I did. Where is it? Over here. This right here is a new lens from Viltrox, a 75 millimeter f1.2, which I like a lot, and I was using it on the A7CR, and I was still getting 26 megapixels. So, you know, when you're out shooting in the field, to be able to have two cameras in one, it's just really great. To have that extra resolution, to be able to crop so much and print so large, it's just 61 megapixels. It is such a luxury to have that. Now, there will be a difference in sharpness in the video. The A7C2 is downsampled from 7K, so its 4K is downsampled from 7K, whereas the A7CR, it is pixel binned down from 8K. Your 4K is pixel binned down from 8K, and it's not quite as sharp as the A7C2. Now, it still looks absolutely fantastic, and it's still very sharp. They did a great job pixel binning it down from the 8K sensor to 4K, but if you're looking for ultimate sharpness, the A7C2 is going to be a bit sharper. And the way they handle 4K 60 is also different. 4K 60 on the A7C2 is downsampled again, but it is at a 1.5 times crop. So you still get that fantastic sharpness, but it is at a 1.5 times crop. Whereas the A7CR, it does a 1.2 times crop. So not quite the hefty crop that the A7C2 has with the A7CR, but this is still not going to be quite as sharp as the A7C2's 4K 60. The only mode that you are going to get oversampling in the A7CR is actually in the APS-C crop mode. Now, that does come with a consequence, though. The rolling shutter is not great in that mode. In fact, let's talk about the rolling shutter now. The A7C2 doesn't do as well in rolling shutter compared to the A7CR when it comes to 4K up to 30. The A7CR, I should just call it the R. The R actually is better with rolling shutter than the 2 when it comes to the regular frame rates. But once you go to 4K 60 with the A7C II, it catches up to the A7R in terms of rolling shutter, and it's pretty equivalent at 4K 60. And when you go into APS-C crop mode, the A7C II actually beats the A7CR in terms of rolling shutter. There you go. Clear as mud, you got it. Watch that part a few more times. Now here's an interesting one. The A7CR actually does 16-bit raw output in 4K. So if you're connected to an external recorder, you can record in RAW with the A7CR. You cannot do that with the A7C II. Now here's one that the A7C II beats the A7R soundly, and that is when it comes to low light performance. The A7C II, much like the A7 IV, which has the same sensor and processor, is absolutely fantastic in low light. Very clean images up to very high ISOs, and it can go to as high as 102,400 ISO. This thing can see in the dark. It is fantastic when it comes to low light performance. And now let's take a look at that low light test. Now, just like the A7R5, the A7CR has that cool pixel shift technology where it just moves the sensor around a little tiny bit and it takes several photos and then puts them together, and you can have a 240 megapixel picture. 240 megapixels, and it does a great job as well with things that are moving. A lot of times, pixel shift technology, it doesn't do well with moving objects, but Sony, it does quite well. So if there's something moving through the frame, you are still able to use that 240 megapixel picture. Very cool. The A7C II does not have that, of course. Now, in terms of photo burst rate, the A7C II actually has a faster burst rate than the R. The A7C II shoots 10 frames per second in both mechanical and electronic shutter, whereas the R, it shoots 8 frames per second in mechanical and 7 frames per second in electronic shutter. So if you're looking for a faster burst rate, the A7C II is the way to go. Now, included with the A7CR, there's actually an extension grip, so if you do find the camera a little too small to hold, then you can just apply that extension grip and it is nice and comfy. That grip will be available to purchase for the A7C II, but it doesn't come with the camera at that price. And speaking of price, there is a difference here as well. The A7C II will come in at $2,200 USD, and the A7CR will come in at $3,000 USD. So what we have here are two very exciting cameras for people who wanted an A7 IV, but they wanted it to be a bit cheaper, smaller, lighter, updated autofocus, AI features. They don't mind that one card slot. Boy, oh boy, hard to pass up that A7C II. And for those people who wanted the ultimate in resolution, you wanted a 61 megapixel sensor like the A7R5, but you didn't want to pay A7R prices. You don't mind that one card slot and the micro HDMI. You didn't need the 8K video features. A7CR might be for you. Tell me down below which camera is for you, if either. And if neither of these cameras, tell me what one you prefer. We can have a nice little discussion about it. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.